So let's get started. Namaste and good morning to everyone joining us live for this LinkedIn live session organized by CIVOM. I am Akshay Bajaj, co-founder of Global Learning Space Network, and it's a pleasure to moderate today's session titled Every Classroom a Stage, Efficiently Converting Learning Spaces for Performance. Before we begin, let us take a moment to invoke Goddess Saraswati, the eternal source of wisdom, music, speech, and learning. In Indian tradition, we begin not with noise but with alignment. Today's discussion is experience led, evidence backed, and deeply practical. So, with that, let me invite our panelists to step into the conversation and help us reimagine what performance can look like when it belongs everywhere. But before that, we have a surprising intro for our panelists. So, let's get started. On first, we have Mr. Yogendra Patidar, Director of CIVOM.
Hello.
Yogendra,
Okay.
whose name means alignment, balance, and flow. And that's how his spaces think and grow. He shows us stages don't need more land, just smarter movement, a well placed stand. From fixed to flexible, calm to contender. Please welcome the mind behind motion, Mr. Yogendra.
Thank you.
On second, we have Miss Helen Bowen, head of school at King's College, India. Helen, whose name means light, and it shows in her way, where learning performs every day. She turns classrooms into moments of spark, where courage steps forward, leaving its mark. With presence as power and purpose as tone, please welcome the light in leadership, Miss Helen Bowen.
Thank you.
We'll also have Mr. Olav, who will be joining us in the middle of the session. He is the head of music at Wellington College International, Pune. Olav, whose name means legacy carried ahead, where music is felt, not just said. He proves that a room doesn't need to be grand for rhythm to travel from heart to hand. When closeness sharpens every scale, please welcome the keeper of sound, Mr. Olav Hekala. Okay. So, three minds, one rhythm, many ways to perform. Every classroom ready, every learner reborn. The theme for today's session is Performance Doesn't Require a Dedicated Auditorium. This session explores the 10-minute transformation, the physical, sonic, and psychological shifts needed to turn a standard classroom into a high impact performance space. And this session will have four themes around which we will have very engaging discussions with our guest panelists. On first, we have the opening, that is the myth of the fixed auditorium. To our audiences joining us from all parts of the world, welcome to this LinkedIn Live. And now the question comes to you. Why do we assume performance only happens on a raised wooden stage with velvet curtains? Can a 600 square feet classroom actually be a world class stage? So let's take this dialogue to our guest panelists. On first, we have a question for Mr. Yogi, from whom we'll ask, please define on the shift from fixed architecture to performance on demand. All yours.
Thank you, Akshay. And nice setting, great introductions. Uh, when you talk about myth of fixed auditorium, I really look upon history. How did this whole concept of auditorium really came on? Okay, so is it the performance which bring the auditoriums, or is it auditorium which brought the performances? Okay, it has always been reversed. We used to call in pre-module periods a space called campfire spaces. Okay, which is typically is translated into a auditorium style. Okay, where one to many performances, storytelling, narrations, civic voices, all of this used to come. Okay, you're sharing with everyone, and that's how campfire become a performance spaces, or performance spaces become auditoriums, and auditoriums keep taking the grandeur palace, spaces around the world. But somewhere along the way, we told children that your voice matters, but only in the rooms. Okay, only on the stages. Okay, when you look at classroom setting, okay, the voice changes out. Okay, so when you go to the stage, the people or the kid or who's performing is been seen from there. So I always say courage starts in classrooms, where you start doing mistakes openly. Okay, and that's where you really start feeling it off. So if I don't have that allowance for a student in a classroom to perform or take that courage, it is never going to get to these only on the auditoriums. Okay, and that's why public speaking is been restricted to few. It's everyone cannot be a performer, because in the head that audience connection and the storytelling and the narration always keep happening differently. And so idea is always been, when you look at the model of auditorium, which we really need to break around, is based on courage, confidence, clarity. Till the point you don't have all these three, it doesn't bring onto the stage also. So you can go to the stage, or look at this whole big size space, it may not connect. So that connection really comes at classroom first, where we really feel that it is not that auditorium which is going to define it, it is the performance which is going to define uh, the change. So when you confine our expression to auditorium, we unintentionally tell our students that bravery is occasional, it is not every day. Okay, it is only when you're going to get to this stage. So how do you really build it every day? So where the way I said it, a child should not have to walk in a special room to feel special. I feel the room they have is special. We need to change the context. There's always a permission, we just need to say yes. Okay. So if you have that, you would instilling this courage and confidence and clarity to them, and then there can you can go anywhere on the stages. So it is the
So,
performance which brought the auditoriums, not the auditorium which brought the performances.
hmm, nicely said. So, you may also notice that whenever we hear the word amphitheater, the first image that may come to our mind, of course, all over the world, is the Colosseum of Rome. Okay, the
Yes.
Flavian amphitheater. And in India, we used to have town halls earlier. I don't know
Mm.
they are going in currently or not. And even
Mm.
in the courtyards of home, we used to have relatives and everyone coming and discussing.
Mm.
So the next question comes to Miss Helen on you have to explain on the pedagogical spark that happens when students perform in their everyday environment.
Thank you, and just a huge thank you for that lovely introduction. And it's a real privilege to be here and given this opportunity to talk today about something that's very passionate for me. As a theatre practitioner and a theatre teacher, it's something that I really do believe in and can really bring that magical spark that we were talking about. So just following on from what Yogi was saying, I think it really does um, allow students freedom. You ask them to take on another character or to see things from a different point of view. All of a sudden, you will find that they give themselves that freedom. They're not thinking, okay, this is what people are going to think about my thoughts, but they're saying this is what people are going to think about the character that I'm playing and their thoughts, and I can explore my thoughts through the medium of portraying this role or portraying this character. And suddenly you see students coming to life. They particularly love exploring the villain character as well. So if you give them the opportunity to use the villain of the story, you'll see energy coming to your classroom, and you'll see that spark in their eyes, and you'll see that natural interaction with others. And it also gives them the adaptability as well, which is a skill that we are looking at building within our students. It's really important that they're able to be adaptable. So as you were saying earlier about this traditional stage doesn't have to be what a stage is. And actually, if you go and look further back than that, storytelling was anywhere and everywhere. And one of my favorite quotes from Shakespeare is, "All the world's a stage." So, the spark that we're talking about, using theatre in everyday classroom, you allow shy students to maybe blossom. You allow students to develop their learning through doing. They're exploring their thoughts. And they're able to do that by making mistakes too, because it isn't them making the mistake, it's the character that they're playing that's making the mistake. You'll see them naturally going into group work without sort of being told that they need to or what have you. You'll see that natural group work happening, and you'll see different students taking the lead during those activities, which is also another really nice assessment tool for teachers.
Beautiful.
Sorry.
And I would, sorry, yeah. You're saying something, Helen.
No, I could just carry on talking all day,
No,
but
so
you need to stop me.
what Helen was saying is so important in everyday context is because when you practice in work life, then when you're giving a feedback to someone, it is not to the person, it is to the role. In every day, and you behave very differently as a role, and the moment you start taking it on yourself. Okay, so and that's what we are playing every day, being as a parent, being as sons, being as daughters, and this is like a real life context. And the moment you realize that this is the role which I'm playing and it is not me, the life becomes much easy. You embrace it more openly. Yeah, that's the only thing which came to me that way.
Quite deep that was, Yogi. And I don't know what kind of telepathy is working with Helen, that while she was speaking, I had already opened this poem, All the World's a Stage. So she also gave a reference to it. So I was going to narrate the few lines, and I have one point that, of course, I will be bringing to Olav, that all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. His acts being 7 ages. At first, the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms, and then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face creeping like snail, unwillingly to school. This is the line that I want to direct to Olav. Okay. And then the lover silent like furnace. So this will go on. So I have to come on to the question to Olav with a reference to this poem, that Olav, on why the intimacy of a classroom can sometimes be better for music than a governess hall. All yours.
Think first off, to look at the history, those huge concert halls are much newer than people know. I've played in Europe, and when you look at what used to be a concert hall, you could maybe seat 100 people in it. It really came about, let's say, the mid 18th century. You started getting bigger public concerts and those big concert halls. So most music was not intended for that big a forum. And I had early on in my career, when I was studying, an experience listening to a concert in the Museum Associates Gallery in Seattle. If you're ever in Seattle, do visit it. They provide museums with natural wonders. And they'd set up one of their main display rooms with maybe 50 people. More could not fit. But being in that room 2 feet away from world-class artists entirely changes how you experience music. Really seeing the interaction between those artists. And what I realized then is if you're in a concert hall, that puts music up on a pedestal. It says, look and admire me, but you are very, very distant from the audience. If you are in a room, there is intimacy. Anybody listening can connect not only with the music, but the performers themselves. Of course, if you're going to see Taylor Swift and you're with 50,000 other people in that stadium, connecting one-on-one with Taylor Swift is going to be very, very difficult. But if in
I guess there are some technical glitches appearing.
lost in this day and age,
He's back. Olav, please continue.
I'll just turn off my camera and see if that helps at least the audio a bit.
Yes.
My stage just seems to be glitching right now. So what I was saying is, I think in this day and age, it's very much been lost. We expect a huge spectacle from our concerts. We want to get as many people in there as possible, as much technology, light show and fireworks and dancing camels or whatever else you want to put on the stage, instead of really focusing on the artwork and on that one artist. And for me, some of the best concerts that have ever been performed were not necessarily on a big stage. They were in there are legendary performances. It was in a small space.
So I guess again some technical issues are arising, right?
Yes, I keep freezing and unfreezing. You know, it changed my name from Olaf to Elsa because I'm frozen all the time. So
No, that's
So Olaf's answer also reminds me, of course, your reference to that candle was like to the candlelight concerts that we are having a lot in India nowadays. So, and it also reminds me of the recent trend that we discussed few days back, Yogi, if you remember, that Gen Z is relating more to jamming, music jamming, as well as they are now vibing on the traditional songs of Indian mythology rather than the concerts and the new songs. If you remember, we were discussing about that. The recent change in
today,
India that
today, I don't know you guys know, but bhajans are being a trend for Gen Zs and Gen Alpha, and the jam
mhm.
on bhajans today. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
trends prefer not to have alcohol, but dancing with this, bhajans is what trending a lot.
perfect. So our first theme is over, and now comes the second theme of this session. That is going to be the most interesting one. That is the physical and sonic hack turning the room. Okay, so the question is quite interesting. If we have 10 minutes between a math class and a string rehearsal, what are the literal moves we make to transform the space? Okay, so the first question again comes to Yogi. How do we create sightlines and stages in a flat room using only the furniture we already have?
So, very good question, and this brings to the whole idea or concepts which CIVOM is continuously working on is agility, flexibility, adaptiveness. The world is going to the area where we need to teach how to learn rather than what to learn. Okay, because context would keep changing around, content would keep changing around. Um, the technologies which is gonna be, kids gonna work on may not be invented yet, the jobs are may not discovered yet. Okay, so what to learn is going to be irrelevant. It is more, how to learn. And when you look at how to learn, adaptive intelligence is what we need and that's where the whole idea of agility and flexibility in classrooms comes around. How we quickly shift one space into a multiple pedagogy settings. So be it opening up the spaces, being a Socratic circle, being it collaboration, being it participation, being it to theatrical areas, all of that can be done in the classrooms right away. And that's how everything which we're trying to work around is have high mobility designs, high light weightedness. The structure as or material science has been evolved to that stages also. So when you really look at acoustics, or maybe I would say the side walls for performances, okay, which can become different context for different zones whenever you wanted to change the narrative or visual merchandise in that sense. So point is this 10 minutes or 5 minutes, or even today it's been done in 2 minutes. That's the speed it can be transformed to. Okay, so the designs have been done, which is we call it semi-static. Okay, so say 50% of that portion is static, 50% is mobile. You have to tilt and just do it quickly. So the idea is it never becomes a disturbance and it becomes mobile easy. So whenever we're looking at the designs, we're trying to follow on those key aspects very, very well from a physiology, pedagogical, and psychological context. So how does you change a cognitive, interference also? So when you are in one setting and when you change to another setting, it makes a big difference right away. Okay, so I feel this is where the key thinking has to be looked into. Um, if you look at, I would say, sonic heck, I always say, when you look into the room, you have to first see what is that you're listening, in terms of acoustics as performances. So when you go and just, put yourself into echo, you'll have your echo reverberating to yourself. Okay. If you really want to dampen this, add humans. Okay. Add materials, and let's just keep changing around. So music also, when you do highly acoustic performance, it dies down. So there has to be some level of, that's right. Acoustic is more important. You over acoustic and under acoustic both need to be assessed. So till the point you don't see the volume of people and other objects around it, the sonic impact doesn't come around. So, and yet it all has to be evaluated, because when you evaluate sonic acoustic performance, you do it on empty rooms. You never consider humans, and humans are one of the bodies which absorb sounds. Okay, we don't know, but that's one of very live thing. So you have to consider those factors before looking at sonicness of the rooms or physical spaces. So these are few things which is what looks like and hacks around it.
So, to what Yogi told about from his experience and from what he practices inside these learning spaces with CIVOM, I have a question for Olaf. That classrooms are often boxy and echoey. So, what are the low cost hacks as per your experience to make them sound like a hall in just a few minutes?
Okay, I think first off, you don't necessarily want it to sound like a concert hall. You want the performers to be heard, but concert halls are made to project that sound out a very long way. All you need to do is be able to hear the performer. But yes, classrooms are often boxy and echoey. And why? They have a lot of large, flat, hard surfaces. Basically, sound will reflect off of it, and that's why they echo. And as Yogi said, the first thing that will dampen that are people. So if the room is a little bit echoey without the people, you won't need to do anything. Once the people come in there, it's going to dampen everything, and it won't be bad. But if it's very, very echoey, what you want to do is the opposite of large, flat, hard surfaces. One of the real fast and cheap hacks are carpets.
Olaf, we can stop the
Yeah.
video, and yes, your
Can you
audio
hear
is
me
coming
again?
back.
Yeah, I was saying carpets. If you put a carpet
Yeah,
on the floor, that's going to be put on things right away. One of the things you do, hang a carpet on a wall. Even for a teacher, if they don't like the sound of that room, put corkboard to display student work, and that's going to absorb some of that sound. And put it on the back wall of the room, the one further from where the performer is, then you're not going to get that sound coming back. So that's the fastest hack I recommend, but easier than people in the room, the sound will die down. And as long as you have irregular and softer surfaces, will die down. If you really needed to do things, you could put foam up, but foam doesn't look great in a classroom. So cork boards, carpets, hang the carpet up, it'll dampen it right away.
So yeah, to everyone listening live, please hang the carpets. That is the best low-cost hack told by Olaf for all of you. Okay. So coming on to the next question for Helen. How does the physical move of a furniture act as a cue for students to switch into performance mode?
Well, just before I answer that one, let me just say I'm a bit jealous of the question that Yogi had.
Okay.
Where we can allow our students to use their imagination to move that space around, to think about how we can use those objects in the classroom in a different way. And for me, I was having a discussion not so long ago about How can you have creativity in your classroom, but still hold on to that academic rigor? And my response was, that is academic rigor. Being able to take what you know and invent something new is all about what we need in our future society. So just wanted to add that little bit there to Yogi's question. But coming back to mine, I think when you are allowing the students to move the furniture in the space, it is giving that signal that something different's happening. It brings, again, linking back to my earlier question about that spark, and you're signaling to students that something different's going to happen. And again, I was talking with my staff on Monday about how, 100 years ago, classrooms were students in desks facing the front, listening to a teacher, maybe doing some work. And quite often, 100 years later, I walk into a classroom and it's still like that. And yet our society has changed so much. What we do in our everyday has changed so much. Many homes, particularly in the UK, won't even have a pen there anymore. And so we have to look at how we're adapting our classrooms for students that are entering in what can be an exciting time for them too. And I think it also made me randomly think of ants as well. If you're watching ants and they all know their job and they're all doing the thing that they're supposed to do, but you put a little leaf in the way and suddenly they'll all scurry around, but they won't be arguing about what's going to happen. They won't be saying, well, what should we do now? And having a little break and a snack or let's go home. No, together they work out how it's going to be and they reorganize, and then suddenly they're off again on their path. And I think that's perhaps what this is referring to. It's just adding in that little spice for something to be a bit different, and then maybe we'll come back to the other routines as well. But that for me is the changing the signal and what that can do for students.
No, I really echo with what Helen is saying, that today, because we come from a physical space side of the whole education environments, and I see the world is changing much faster, but still this piece is very tough. Okay, and it may be because of it's coming from top down, maybe not from bottom up, because people who are using it, their context is very different. Someone who's getting it done is very different context. So when you look at user and today's user and their behaviors are very different. So when we were researching on attributes of future workforce, we figured out they are purpose seekers, okay, and they are teamers, they are doers, they are flexers. Now look at those signals and put into today's generation who's going to schools. Okay, and the bigger problem is coming because I feel learners are muses. Okay, they don't have a voice, and they're very easy to mold around in the way adults are making them. Okay, the challenge is coming at the andragogy level. It's how to change the behaviors of the adults to today's context. Because the moment I become a learner who is learned enough to change the context, it will make the whole difference. So if you go from a user or stakeholder approach from bottom up, okay, we are doing these changes for those people who cannot make or don't have a power to choose. Think about, you are a user and you are not decision maker. Okay, you cannot choose what chair you need to sit on. Okay, and that's what happening with the learners. Okay, there are layers of there are designers, architects, school owner, founders team, operations team, and everyone choosing for them where this should sit. Okay, so, and that's very frustrating some way, because that context need to be very, very right, and which is what going to shape this direction. If you look at from a future and from the behavioral context, not only from future context but a behavioral context, world is getting into meta, right? Okay, And in that meta intelligence, we no longer gonna behave in the way we used to. Our world is of collaboration today. When you go to workforce, everyone is collaborating with everyone, but classroom is competitive. Okay, so the psychological signals are very different. So I think that need to shape into that bottom up approach rather than top down.
If I could add something on to that, it's also looking at how you set that up. If you're setting up a concert and there are a lot of children in that concert, why should they be sitting on chairs in rows in front of you? They could be in a carpet. What might be more interesting is, and Helen will know about this, theater in the round. You can do the same thing with music. You can have people looking at you from all sides. You can take advantage of that. So instead of trying to make something into a concert hall, take advantage of what's there. There's no reason that it has to look or function the same way. And, so if acoustically the best space is the center of the room, put the performers in the center and build around in the way that's best for you. You don't have to make it that one person is on one end and then everybody else is on the other.
I agree.
So also reminds me of this word, yogi. You may relate to it, and Olav and Helen also. Like we have a holy book called as Bhagavad Gita. The meaning of it is the sound of God, right? And that was actually narrated in the middle of a battlefield, which we again hear it now for so many centuries. So that relates to what Olav was saying. Use the space and perform there.
Yeah, in the battle next to a chariot, on a chariot.
Yeah.
So use the space and make the best out of the space. Don't try and change the space.
Okay.
The space is hard to change. You need bulldozers, you need plaster to change the space, but that's, and then you're going to get the best out.
I think it's like putting from mental, make the space. Okay, whatever it is, make this and give it to them right away.
Okay, so that brings us to the conclusion of this theme where we answered the question, the acoustics settle, the echoes align. Now, how do we tune the human spine? And that brings us to the third theme of this session where Olav and Yogi, I have to get you ready for a very interesting, engaging exercise that Helen would be doing. So, before
Okay.
that, I have to say, when volume rises and moves, how do we keep harmony under the skin? So, welcome to the third theme, that is the psychological conversion, where we have to shift the energy, where a room might look like a stage, but how do we make it feel like one? Helen, can you please take the lead and show us how theatricalize can be a standard space? All yours.
Thank you, but I'm not going to let you get away so easily.
Okay.
And I'm going to be asking you to also join in too.
Sure.
I have two very quick exercises actually, and one that I think Olaf will know and be wishing that he had the opportunity to do. But anyway, I'm going to do it. But the first one is going to come back to a point that Yogi said earlier, and that was you were talking about saying yes. And there is a fantastic game called Yes, Let's. And this is where I will say something, and this could be done sitting at your seat, which is what we will do now, or it could be in a big space with the students moving around. But I will say something, for example, let's eat breakfast. And then everybody will need to reply with, yes, let's. And then you have to mime eating breakfast. And then somebody else within the group, let's say Olav, maybe you will be next, and you will then decide what we all need to do. Maybe it's let's put on our spacesuit. Let's all sing a song, or I don't know. That would be your choice, your imagination. And then we all reply with yes, let's, and then somebody else will suggest something too. Okay, so let's have a little practice first. with
Okay.
the yes, let's. So I need from you all three to just repeat after me with yes, let's.
Yes,
Go.
let's.
Let's.
Yes, let's.
Brilliant. So, how about we start by let's all put on our hair, brush our hair, makeup if we want to. Are you ready? We're going to do our hair.
Yes, let's. Okay.
Yes, let's.
Let's.
Yeah.
Anyone can shout out when they're ready to change and do something different.
Okay. Let's have coffee.
Yes, let's.
Let's.
Okay.
Anybody else? Maybe you have something you'd like us to try?
Yes, let's dance.
Yes.
Let's.
Let's.
Olaf, do you have something you'd like us all to do? If he's perfect,
Let's
juggling
juggle
balls.
Yes,
bottles.
let's.
Let's.
Brilliant. Oh my goodness. Your juggling
Yes.
skills are absolutely phenomenal. I'm blown away with those skills. And of course, if you've got space to move around in, students might say, let's go to the park and let's go to the zoo. Let's be on a desert island. Let's be under the water. Let's go to the space. And my second, and already you can feel the energy. I think even virtually through the screen, you can feel that we have some more energy to what we're doing. And another one that can help to bring up energy and then to reduce energy is something that I think Olaf will be very familiar with, and that's creating the weather. So we might start with creating some soft, gentle blowing wind. So we might be and I don't need it all yet, as we're all going to join in. Actually, you can't get away from this either. And you can start to hear the gentle pitter-patter of some rain. And the rain is getting a little harder, and you can make different ways of making that rain sound.
Nice.
And it's getting harder, it's getting louder, maybe some feet stamping as well. And the rain is really crashing, and there might be some thunder crashes and some thunder claps, and we're all doing this without me speaking normally, but with the effect only. And then the wind and some lightning thrown in there with different sounds and crashes, bang with the students, whatever they created that with. And then as the wind and the thunderstorm is passing through, the rain is starting to get a little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less. And back to the wind. I think Olaf was probably so jealous, that's why he did. But two different activities that can help bring students together, can really help with mood, with energy, and with feeling one another and coming together and just being in the space together.
I think it's very, very interesting, very participatory, and that switches your, mindsets right away, and gets you active, more, I think engaging. This is beautiful, Helen.
You both did a great job. You're hired as my next actors.
Okay, we gonna be your associates now. Okay.
So
No, it's been great.
this, this reminds me, like in Indian movies, we pay a lot of importance to rains. Okay, what you were doing at last, na? So we even have many famous songs related to it, like from the movie Guru Barsore Mega Mega,
Yeah.
and even in the movie Lagan, they had a whole song dedicated to praying to the gods of rain
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
shower in their village.
No, I think what I'm really realizing and able to reflect is how important it is to switch your gears every day. You know, uh, we make our life so tough uh, with the kind of thinkings, and this switching makes you more live. It's like, letting it go, and then probably re-picking up with a better energy or better direction. So, and this is becoming rigid when you get more older. It's becoming more hardened, hardwired rather than loose wired. And this is, this makes your, if you can do it every day, switch it out some way. It's a beautiful energy transmission. It's letting me thinking a lot, Helen. Uh, because
So
it's
there's
a kind of, sorry.
So, Yogi, if you remember, there's this famous quote, no, what you were saying: "Do not let your inner child die. It is who saves you, and
Yes,
do not let you go mad with the pressures of adulthood."
yes. That's beautiful, and that's what we have to keep reminding ourselves through one or the other, activities or actions like this. That that's always live. It is not letting it die. And I think, see, point, I don't know, somewhere society or maybe our education system also kind of make it so rigid that you want them to perform in a certain way. You want to behave in a certain way, and those behaviors and performances eventually start becoming hardwired to you. And then, the whole baggage of responsibility given to you, that, by 24, you start working around, getting earning or breadwinners and all of that. It makes you lose onto something, and everything is, come with a prototype or preset behavioral circles. Okay. So, which is where I think very, very important to have this reminder that this inner child is never to die. And I think, Helen, there should be something to be done on this. It's a big issue, I believe.
Absolutely, and I think that's the gift of working with children every day, day in, day out. That from the moment they come in, and I'm there at the gate greeting them with their smiles, and we just have a lot of fun at the start of the day. And one of my favorite quotes that I come back to a lot by Roald Dahl is, if you don't believe in magic, you're never going to find it.
Yes.
And I think, for me, children are magical. What we can do and what we can give in this life can be magical. And I think if we bring that spark even to our older students, who it might be a slightly different topic or it might be a slightly different theme, but they still want to be excited and they still want to be entertained and given the opportunity to explore and develop and be creative.
No, in agreement, because just this lightweightedness of this into your adulthood. Okay. And that's more like it needs a campaigning. We are taking life too seriously, and this is for everyone. I would say, like, you, when you go to US or Europe, you have anti-boredom campaigns. Okay. India needs, lose wire campaigns, or losing yourself every day, or being child, or something like that. It needs that campaigning, because uh, except the kids, everyone's taking life too seriously. And so the beauty is in the journey, not in the destination. So
So
how do you relive or relive from that? I think that needs a great campaign.
So what Helen and Yogi were
Speak
saying,
for
that
yourself
reminds.
about relaxing. I got flooded out here on the last exercise. It just rained too hard and I got flooded out for a while. So,
This all of you are discussing about when you have this exercise, and then so because we are not connected with kids every day, of course not like
Mhm.
in the degree you are connected, but when you do this exercise, then you relive your kid inside you. You don't kill that. It's
Yeah.
a very beautiful reflection as an adult that we take life too seriously every day, for the goals
Yeah.
and metrics to solve. It's so I think this is where it needs a lot of deliberation.
Yeah. And play is important. We forget that. If we can't
Yes.
play with things, we ideas, we can't be
Yes.
into play is important. And it means sometimes, being silly, making ourselves a little bit of a clown. And that's
Agree.
good. If we can't do that, then how are we going to bring that into our profession? How are we going to really come up with things that engage others if we're teaching?
Yes.
Um, you know, heaven forbid we lose the ability to play.
Hmm. And I think it's also in organizations, it's a lot of time, or maybe in the countries also, it's a cultural dynamics, or somewhere that's a softer part which you really need to induce in a very subtle and intentional way, probably. Yes, actually, you're saying something.
Yeah, yeah. So to what Helen, Yogi, and Ola were saying, this reminds me of school days. So in our school, we always used to have this morning assembly prayers, and that those were sung. But whenever there were festival celebrations, that was the most enjoyable and fun part, where we used to listen to music and songs. And yes, Helen, you won't believe that in India, what we used to have whenever teachers used to come, uh, we didn't say it normally like good morning teacher. All of us would get in unison and we would say good morning teacher. And when the class was over, we used to say purposefully, thank you teacher, bye bye teacher. Like we were singing those things. And even if you would have heard, like in our schools, what used to happen, there was this famous song called as "We Will Rock You" from Backstreet Boys that was getting famous during those times. So once the class starts banging on the desk, we will rock you. Other class starts and the entire school starts banging on their desk. We will rock you. So those were the fun days, like you were saying. That's how music united us all.
No, great.
Okay. So that calls for the conclusion of the third theme. And now let's get on to the final theme of this session, that is on health, safety, and the dual purpose dilemma. Okay, so now let's get practical. How do we manage the chaos of conversion without exhausting teachers or compromising on safety? So the first question comes to Helen. What are the non negotiable safeguarding and exit protocols when we start rearranging desks into a theater layout?
Yeah, it is really important to think about, and you've got to think about student safety. I think you need to ensure that whatever the activity you are doing, in whatever space you are doing, that the exits are easily accessible, easily visible, and that they are not blocked. I think sometimes when you're in the throes of creating a spaceship in your classroom, and then suddenly the door is blocked by a desk which has become the operating facilitation unit in your spaceship. That can't happen. We have to make sure that those exits are accessible. We also have to make sure that if we were creating a space, for example, for computers or for microphone stands, things like that, often they have those flip up covers, but actually they can be more dangerous for the students. They flip up, the students are tripping over, etc. So just thinking about lighting, thinking about exits, thinking about electricity. Coming back to the lighting, particularly here, we have a couple of rooms that don't have any windows. We do have a black box theatre, and when we have our power cuts, it is pitch black in there. So having that emergency lighting that will come on, and also having the light switch next to the exit door as well, so that if somebody needed to go out the space, they can be switching off those spaces too. Just kind of, sensible stuff that a teacher would do, or the facilitator would do, in making sure that students aren't going to bang into sharp edges, sharp corners. If they're going to be working on steps or different leveled platforms, that the students are going to be safe in those working areas too.
Quite an interesting answer. That gets me to a relatable question for you also. So, how do we design for storage less conversion, and where does the classroom go when the stage arrives?
Good question. But like I said, uh, it's it's not like the classroom disappears, okay, or doesn't disappear or doesn't. Idea is the whole thinking is like we were talking about humans. It has next version of it. Okay, so like we have a different roles to play. The same thing can have a different versions and different roles to play based on the needs, of that classroom pedagogical transformation. And that's why it's very, very important to think from the context where Helen started. That classroom did not change from they were 100 years ago till now, because we are not thinking them as a tools, or as a transform or tools of transformation. We're thinking them as a tools of communications or deliveries. Okay, so the way at CIVOM we put thinking is the classroom of past was efficient delivery of content. Okay, the goal was 45 minutes, 50 minutes, or 1 hour session, and teachers pre-planned some content and that need to be delivered. That's like input versus output. That 1 hour, this much delivery need to happen without bothering what received to what who. Okay, and this is what is been known as a production or a factory efficiency models. But when we look into effectiveness of it, and then that time maybe it could have been relevant. You're looking humans to work with machines in a mass way, more like a trained skilled force. But the world has changed a lot. We really need to get to a self direction. I would, can if I can add a spiritual path of self elevation. Okay, because if I don't have it, I would not be designing from efficiency to effectiveness. The whole dynamics is shifting to effectiveness. So when we go and look at the classroom, have the signals, we try to signal he's different kind of learner, that's a different kind of learner. He has a different interest, she has a different interest, okay, different patience. And how do you work through that? And this is where you're going to give them a path phase of their own gift, letting them discover their gifts. It's more about exploration and introspection and communication on that part, because there are n number of examples that people have done great without schools also. In some cases dropouts doing much better, maybe from not schools but maybe from colleges. But when you learn from a real world context, okay, it is different learning, and you adapt, you set your own tone, you set your own speed. Okay, and that's how you can fit into the world. But why our classroom cannot be that kind of live labs where the context can speed can change around? Because if I'm looking at effectiveness, the whole dynamics is going to shift. And who's deciding rules for us? Because this is purely human development. It's a race of our own generations going to get developed for different things to solve. Okay, and when the world is going to be more powerful, let's say an artificial intelligence or anything, the deciding factor would be humanity, the intent. So how do we induce those intents and affect the self connectedness? So I believe if you're raising a human development, or building a human development, that's where the signal is going to come down. So For me, it's when you look at safety or all this an operational reality check, that's a reality check we'll to really look into first. Okay, so if we have this whole setting as a tools for effectiveness, the game can be changed. Okay, why we're being not why we're being stopped to sit on the floor, like all of us saying that why we cannot choose it, why I cannot lay comfortably, because if I would be in real life, my office doesn't stop me, my world is not going to stop me. So how would we put this into context of classroom and that kind of dynamics? And if I be human, I'm not a trained muse. Okay, that's where I can probably learn better, be physically and mentally present there. Because if I'm there physically and not mentally, the whole exercise of schooling or teaching or training or learning fails out. If my mind is somewhere else, physically I'm sitting there, it's you're not living the moment. And I think that's how this whole operation and reality should be checked. Or safeties of course are different part, which Helen has very precisely looked into. A child safe environment which should be part of it. It can go deep to VOC emissions or fumes and everything in terms of material selections and everything. That is where it can be more sustainable, and I agree to that. But the dynamics of reality check is this, not the other way around.
Thank you. Thank you, Yogi, for giving me that reality check that when I was a student, of course, I was physically present in a class, but my mind was going on to what's happening on the sports ground or what's happening in the other parts of the class. So, and thanks also for making us realize how we have come a long way from the industrialization age to the modern age where we are respecting every learner's own style of learning as well as we are creating flexible learning spaces. So that brings me to the next question for Olav. How do we manage noise bleed so the performance space doesn't become a nuisance to the science lab next door?
Well, first I'd say, who says that the science lab isn't a nuisance to other people?
You know what? I would. It's a different. Yes, sorry, Alaf. Yeah.
I criticize science and then the computer cut me off. Oh, I was saying, who says that the science lab isn't a nuisance to everybody else?
And this will stop you again.
Olav?
Yeah, I think that this is a tricky one. First, and foremost, scheduling and just informing. Usually that'll take away most of the problem. But one thing to remember, if you're in a situation where you really can't schedule your way around it, is that the sound from people and most instruments is not omnidirectional. It comes from one place and goes to another. Like if you stand, you will hear very little. So if you put the amp facing not towards that science lab, but away, and keep that in mind, then you'll be directing the sound towards the lab. I don't know if you can disconnects. They really don't want me to talk about the science lab. But yes, just point things away. And actually, also remember, higher pitched noises will carry more than lower pitched. And they'll be more audible. So usually what's going to disturb the science lab more isn't, if it's music, the music. It's going to be the applause. That's going to cut through more. And well, let's face it, they can put up with a little bit of applause. Just because nobody's applauding their experiment, I think they should be able to put up with it. But, remember that, those higher pitched frequencies. Acoustic also will not carry as much as amplified music. So consider what kind of music am I going to put in that space, because there's only so much you can do to reduce the bleed.
No, I would have something to add on onto this. We were doing open learning environment for a school, and And that's the first challenge came from every traditional thought teachers, that how would we teach in this environment, because everything is open, and they never practiced it, and and that's where the whole teacher training and pedagogic experimentation started at our end. So we what we really did is, we first made the chart of decibel noises. When you talk, what is the decibel? When you're saying, so we kind of put signage for decibel levels. So what activity brings what kind of decibels? Okay, and each zone is signalized with a decibel allowance in that zone. So you can filter through that kind of decibels. Okay, and to my surprise, once people start focusing and the whole environment changing to their own perspective, they found clarity in chaos, because that's the world you be going to get to in reality, in real life. There's so much happening around you, you still focused in what you really want to do. Okay, or your group is focused into that. So it is, how do you train those cultural context through those kind of physical environments? So which is what kind of experiment is done, and that, and kids, when they know and they got the signals or images on this at early age also, they can utilize it. We had created walkway paths on this, so they only walk on those paths, and others center areas are learning zones for them. So it is just the signaling by flooring, by signages, by certain small images. It's working phenomenal. So what Ola was saying, that a lot of time this kind of strategy, just making awareness in an intentional way, gets your game done.
I also have a request to all three of you to also share your take on this. Like, since Yogi told that they measured the decibels, okay, of the learning space or the classroom. So, what happens when you have autistic students in your learning space or your classroom, and how the sound actually is designed, or how the learning space is designed to make them feel comfortable? Helen, if you would like to add.
Yeah, and not just autistic, many different neurodivergent elements come into play here. And I think it's essential to know your students. It's essential that the teachers within the environment are communicating together, so that they are sharing any knowledge if they are aware of some issues that might have an effect on a student, and also the strategies to help that student. And as a teacher, I often, speak to the student, and they appreciate that. And I will say, we're going to be doing this. If you are feeling in a certain way, then how do you cope with it? What's your strategy? Let me know, so that if you are beginning to feel distressed by the noise and you then ask to leave, I will be able to say, yep, no problem. And, don't forget to come back in 5 minutes, or, and agree maybe where they're going to go. Or maybe they've got headphones that they're going to be wearing to just filter some of those noises. So I think, in short, the key is know your students, communicate well within the teaching community, but communicate and establish those routines with the students too.
Commendable take on that. Ola, what's your take on that?
I have an interesting one, because I am on the spectrum, and each person, and it isn't just autism, there are a lot of people who may have difficulty with a loud environment. So
No issues. He'll join in some minute or
knowing
two.
where the sound is
Yeah,
coming.
you're back.
Oh, wait a second. It said, oops, connection. Here I am again. What worked for me.
He'll come back.
Did I disappear?
Yeah, that's a strategy.
So, Yeah, let's continue. So whenever Olaf joins, we'll give him the stage back.
No,
Okay.
I think for me also in the same way, I echo with Helen that knowing the individuals and putting those comfort centers, because um, when you're making them feel equal, equitable at the same time, okay, the moment you put this notion of defining them into any special category, that's the first injustice you have started doing it. First, that has to be equal and equitable at the same time. Once you are on that path, then probably the other journey can start around.
And acceptance.
Yeah,
The
this is
student feels that you accept that they
yes.
have these strategies and that you're okay with that.
Yes.
They feel more comfortable.
And that's where they start seeing and believing the world going to be. Like the moment you show a prejudiced approach, that's how they're going to see the world. So that's the places or the environments where they try to see how how equitable and how equal they are. Sorry, Olav, we took over the
Yeah,
stage.
I know. I'm not finding that Restream is being equitable to me, but um, it's a matter of, can I control the noise level, and do I know where it's coming from? For me, what was always as a performer more disorienting wasn't the loud coming from the orchestra, but when the audience applauded, because I didn't know exactly how long or where it was coming from. So for those who have issues with the sound, if they have a chance to explore the space, know what is coming from where, and know where the exit is if they have to go out, that helps tremendously. It could be that they sit and enjoy the entire performance, even if it's really loud, because they know it is going to be loud. It is coming from this particular area. It will be coming from that area for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah. And time is important too. How long,
Yeah.
when it's going to finish.
Okay.
Very important points summed up by Helen and Olaf. And with rooms well tuned and courage near, what's the one note every school must hear? That brings us to the final verdict, the one must have. Now, we have a question where we'll give a quick minute to our guest panelists to answer. And Olaf, I request you to not freeze now. This is going to be the final one.
Okay. One thing on preparing that room, go in, clap once, see how much it echoes. If it's echoing just a little bit, you don't need to change anything. If it's going to echo more, get your acoustic improvements lined up in advance.
Okay. So the common question for you, that is the last question where we have a quick minute for everyone, is if a school has zero budget but wants to start every classroom a stage concept right tomorrow, what is your one piece of advice? Helen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to talk a little bit about presence. And I think Jörgi mentioned earlier about physically being there. And I think that's the importance of this. You know, we are having that one-to-one interaction with the students. We're actually being there. If we show we are interested, then the students are going to be more interested. And that's really powerful. Teachers can create a balance. If the students, and you can sense they're feeling really agitated, if the teacher is then very calm, you level out the balance again. If the students are very low in their energy, but the teacher has lots of energy, bringing it to the space, bringing it to the classroom, again, you're just going to balance out that energy. And I think finally from me, it's about the importance of the teacher present, creating the safe space. And without the teacher there, you may then end up with students not feeling safe to explore, not feeling safe to work together with other students, not knowing the boundaries of the room. And so I think for me, that's my final thought. The teacher has the power to create that safe space.
Thank you. Thank you so much on highlighting the power of the presence of the teacher as the director of the space. To Olaf, please, your take.
On the presence or on your last question?
On my final question, if a school
Okay.
has a zero budget, what's your final piece of advice for implementing every classroom on stage and on the power of the ear?
Okay, just gave it. I'll repeat it. Go in, test the space. See what the space is like, because that'll tell you what you have to do to change it. That's the practical one. On the power of the space, don't change the space, adapt to the space, let the space make the most of it. Don't think that you are going to improve the space, you're going to augment the space.
So we got a quote of the day: "Don't change the space, adapt to the space." Thank you, Ola, for that. And to Yogi, please, your take on that, on the power of the pivot, making the space work twice as hard.
No, that's the thing which we really breathe every day. How to make space as hard as stakeholders or teachers or students work. Okay, and that's where whenever we try to see it, we look at them as a invisible curriculums or invisible pedagogies or invisible catalyst. Okay, uh, because I believe till people, program, or places are not aligned, the magic of learning is not going to happen. All three has to have a right fit. From a zero budget strategy, I would say that when you look at physical spaces, try and reflect upon what they are saying. Okay, when you see a corridor, what is that saying? When you see a classroom, what is that saying? Look at it from that context. The moment you start having an intentional movement with physical environment and start listening or observing that what it is saying, there is a lot of meaning going to come to you. What it is not allowing to do, what is it allowing me to do, and then experimenting with what you have will start giving you. You don't intentionally sit and interpret the space. And the moment you start doing it, do it with your office setup also. Do it with anything. When you see a blank wall, what it is saying. When you're showcasing something, what it's showing. And this is the human behaviors which is going seen in the physical environment right away. It can translate into a personality. So the philosophy of buildings and non-living is like beauty. You can look at someone's fat, thick, thin, slim. All of that. It's a beautiful system of looking or interpreting them as living things. Okay, in a crowd, in separate, in island, it's all of this. Once you see it, it's a beautiful perspective around it. So I always see when you see a physical objects or physical buildings or environments, how they translate as a human, another human to connecting to you. So and you not believe the world around is a lot of non-living communicating to us every day. When you go to airport, you behave differently. When you go to railway station, you behave differently. Okay, and how is it happening? So it's that physical, hard environment and soft environment which people think through that. So how do you interpret is going to make a lot of difference. So, and I'm telling you, non-living is what taking over living. Okay, if you are not reading this, it is happening every day. So how do you see them as a living, and then you can coexist together? That would be my interpretation on the pivot of it.
So, to everyone watching, Yogi gave us a very important question. What is the intent behind designing a space? And what is it that you want to communicate with your space? Then you'll
And
get
what it
all
is
the
communicating already, when you see it, take them as another human, your room as a human or your building as a human, and then try to see what they're reflecting upon.
superb answers, superb discussion, and a superb engaging experience curated by Helen. That was like a first of its kind for our LinkedIn Live, where we actually gave up on our adulthood to become child again.
And also kudos to I would say Olao's consistent effort. Because you get pissed when technology doesn't work rightly. It's a challenge, and maybe because he might be challenging science classroom or science labs. Uh, but yeah, no, kudos to him also. Great.
So yeah, before bidding you a final goodbye, I have a poem dedicated to all of you and for this session again. Every classroom holds a dormant score, waiting to be played, not built once more. When walls can listen and teachers conduct, learning finds tempo, courage, and trust. Thank you, Yogi. Thank you, Olaf. Thank you, Helen, for tuning space where young voices swell in. And to all who joined us, wherever you are, may you return to your schools and remember this bar. You don't need a hall to begin the song, just a listening room and the courage to belong. Thank you to our guest panelists for joining us for this LinkedIn live session, and thank you to all the people in the audiences who joined us for this session. And for every kind of doubt you have, you may please tag our speakers in the comment section, and they would be very happy to guide you with their answers. Thank you for joining us on this live, and we'll meet soon on the next one.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you,
Thank you.
Akshay.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Ola.